strategy for your organization to put your goals in place and to really be able to meet those goals now and in the future. Now, before we go into everything today, I'd like to start off with a few simple concepts. A roof over your head. It is raining outside. Worth and dignity. These are things that should be simple in everyone's lives. These are things that are basic human rights. However, these things are not so simple for many people in the world. These things are not so simple for people in your community. We believe that what your organization is doing, bringing people together to build homes for these types of peoples and families, is amazing. We believe that you are putting an end to the vicious cycle that is poverty and putting an end to the thought of, what if that next paycheck is the paycheck that things don't work? What if that next paycheck is the paycheck where I get evicted or where I can't have the resources that I need to provide for my family? These are serious matters, and we think that you're bringing your community together. You're bringing in volunteers, these families, different people, to really put in hard work and effort, to put in some sweat equity. We've put in a little bit of sweat equity at Wholesome Consulting, and we'd like to show you what we have for you today. So first off, I'd like to talk about the primary issue that we've identified. The primary issue being, how can your organization build 24 homes, double the homes that you built last year, and still be able to maintain the sustainability of your organization and make an impact for lasting years? Some of these secondary problems that arise include the corporate sponsorship that you've been offered, the restore efficiency, whether or not you should relocate or you should renovate or you should switch that up, as well as the impact of your fundraising events. Currently, among your board, you have a little bit of misalignment with what you think you should be doing with your fundraising aspects. However, we think that we have a strategy that will solve this today. So our recommendation for you is to accept the corporate sponsorship that has been given to you. However, you need to go through a few different steps before you can make this a feasible thing that you can implement in your organization. We'll go through that a little bit later. We think that you should renegotiate the rent at the current restore location, and in approximately 1 year time, you should relocate into a place where you actually own it. And then enhance the black tie event. We think that keeping this event, which is an event that your organization has been successful with in the past, and just enhancing some of the features will be an excellent way to sustain this. So today, Drew's going to go through the analysis as well as the alternatives. He's going to tell you how we came to these recommendations through the decision criteria. Alex is going to lay out the recommendation and implementation, as well as an actionable timeline for your organization to follow. Then I'll come back and talk about financial forecasting, as well as some risks and mitigations for your organization. Now I'd like to pass things off to Drew.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Noonan and executives, for just giving us this opportunity today. So as Karen mentioned, I focus the majority of my efforts on the analysis of your organization. So to begin with the strengths and weaknesses of Habitat for Humanity as a whole. The strength is simply 20,000 homes in 1 year. That's incredible. That's a lot of homes in 1 year. And as well as its relatable cause. Relatable cause being that each and every one of us in this room, through some point in our life, has faced some sort of financial crisis. Struggle with money here for rent, for tuition, during school, something to that effect. That is a relatable cause that gives each and every one of us the opportunity to relate to Habitat for Humanity and just to invest ourselves in that cause as well. However, there are also some weaknesses for Habitat for Humanity as a whole. Those being the transparency as well as the accountability that is associated with the company as it grows larger and larger. So just moving on with the analysis to the external analysis of Habitat here in Wellington. There's a few opportunities that there are for you guys here. First being expansion. Expansion into surrounding communities, not only for donations, but also to increase the sweat equity from our surrounding metropolis areas as well. Further opportunities would be the expansion in the amount of government grants. Government grants are huge and they're great opportunities. However, we need to take the initiative as to apply for those. There are also a few threats. The long application process associated with those government grants is the first threat. That's something we need to be addressed as soon as possible, as well as moving on, the competition is rising. There's a shallow donation pool here in Wellington with 80% of our in-kind donations coming from 8 companies. And with the rising competition, that is definitely a threat to the growth and even the success of Habitat for Humanity here in Wellington. Moving on to the internal analysis, the strengths. First strength is simply the prestige and the notability of Habitat for Humanity itself. Habitat for Humanity is a well-known organization, and that is a strength to Habitat here in Wellington because it provides notability and it provides donors with the opportunity to relate to something and to see where that money is going. As well as there's very experienced staff. There's very knowledgeable people in place to run each of your 5 committees. And that is huge because if we don't have the proper people in place, overall the success of the organization falls. And there's also very well-rounded and great number of people on the board. That well-rounded knowledge and that variety of knowledge base provides them with the opportunity to see things from different perspectives and to be able to think about things differently in order to have effective problem solving when issues such as the 2009 financial crisis arise. And then moving on to the weaknesses of your organization here in Wellington, that would be the disagreement among the fundraising committee, first one. That would be because, like I mentioned, although this is a good thing, because we have somebody on the fundraising committee able to question the organization, be able to make sure they're stepping up, not just going along with the organization. However, this disagreement with the black tie event in particular could be a weakness going forward, as well as the application for government grants. We outline this as a weakness simply because it has not been done yet. And as I mentioned before, it is a very lengthy process, so we need to get that going as soon as possible. And the municipal government grants. Currently, the municipal government grants are set to expire in 2015. This is potentially a weakness for your organization because that is a significant amount of money that we do rely on for our day-to-day business, as well as a benchmark. Currently, the 2 times in 2014, the goal that you guys have laid out for us, could potentially create a benchmark in the future to continually reach that benchmark of 24 homes per year. However, although that might be sustainable in the next year through short-term fundraising and kind of like a Band-Aid approach, that might create donors to expect that 24 homes benchmark year to year, which could potentially be a weakness in the future as it might not be attainable. Just to move on to some of the decision criteria we've came up with to outline our alternatives. First one being is the alignment with values. We want to make sure anything that we recommend here today is aligned with the values of Habitat for Humanity as a whole, as well as here in Wellington. We want to make sure that we are continually focused on breaking the cycle of poverty. We are determined with that cause, and like I mentioned before, it's a very relatable cause for donors as well as sweat equity volunteers. Moving on to the sustainability of the goal. 2 times in 2014, like I mentioned before, could create that benchmark. And we want to make sure that anything that we recommend does have the ability to maybe not fully reach that 24 in the future, but reach a level that is acceptable to donors as well as volunteers to make sure that they're continuing to relate to the cause and not fall off the train that way. As well as the adaptability. We want to provide you guys with the opportunity to be able to shift focus on revenue streams, to be able to overcome issues such as the 2009 financial crisis. And with that, we've outlined a few alternatives for you guys today, with three main areas. The first being focus on fundraising, as well as the second being the efficiency of the restore, and the third being the corporate sponsorship. And with that, we dug a little deeper and outlined a few alternatives in there as well. The first being enhance the black tie event, increase the number of barbecues, and then through the efficiency, we want to renegotiate the rent, or we could potentially move into our own location and own that. Corporate sponsorship, we could accept Mr. Rousseau's offer, or we could decline Mr. Rousseau's offer. And with that, I'd just like to pass on that, this decision criteria matrix. We've outlined a few decision criteria here, and this is a visual showing that each one of our alternatives aligns with these decision criteria. We want to make sure we're capitalizing on those positives and minimizing those negatives. And with that, I'd like to pass on to Alex for recommendation.
Thanks, Chair. Mr. Noonan, over the past couple months, my colleagues and I have got together and really started to understand your company and your organization. And we just want to say, you have done such a great job stepping up to the plate as managing director and trying to set the objective of 24 homes in 2014. That is awesome. You're building homes for 24 families in Wellington. You're giving a place to live, not only a home, not only a house for them to live in, a physical place, but an actual home for families to grow and learn and develop as a family. So with that, we're darn proud to show you our recommendation and our implementation here today. So the first one, as Kara mentioned, is we want to accept Mr. Russo's offer for corporate sponsorship. Now, we do understand that this is not totally going along with your head office's values. That's why we have a couple negotiations that we want to go back to Mr. Russo with. The second one is renegotiate rent at the Restore location. We've done quite a bit of research on Restore, and we know that right now it's a little bit cluttered and there's not a lot of space for all the materials in there. So we really want to renegotiate the rent there and then move into a larger facility in the future. And the third part of our recommendation is to enhance the black tie events. As you know, community and togetherness is very, very important. So having these black tie events to show appreciation for your sponsors and for your volunteers is very important. So with that, the first phase of our implementation is all about negotiating and applying. So what we want to do is we want to negotiate with the board of directors, Mr. Russo, the rent at Restore, as well as the Habitat head office. And the reason why we want to do this is because we do need to satisfy these funding requests. However, we do need to also make sure that they align with Habitat's values, because we can't just go after every funding request that we get. We really want to make sure that our values are aligned with these recommendations going forward. So the first part, we need to negotiate rent for the current Restore location. We believe that utilizing your board members' relationship with the lease manager will give us the opportunity to have a one-year contract and to renew that location and then move on into the future into a larger location. The second thing that we want to do is renegotiate with Mr. Russo. Now, why is this so important? Because right now, you do not want to accept his offer. However, we believe that going back to him with some different terms and conditions. So he is offering you $1 million for a 5-year contract. That's a lot of money for a not-for-profit. However, what he is not offering right now is any sweat equity. He hasn't donated any volunteers so far. He just wants to have his name out on the plate so that he can get some little corporate responsibility. We don't believe in that because we believe in togetherness and everybody helping out each other. So we believe that if we go back to him and we say not only do we accept your $1 million offer, but we want some volunteers as well to help us build those 24 houses, because that's not going to be easy in only 1 year. And the last thing that we want to do is contact head office for approval. Once we renegotiate with Mr. Russo and he accepts, we will need to go back to head office and just ensure that they are on board as well. And then, as Drew mentioned, there are various opportunities for provincial and federal grants, so we do want to apply for those as well. The second part of our implementation is reallocating resources. So with our corporate sponsorship, Kara will go through the financials right now, but we do need to put some money into the operating budget as well as an endowment fund for the future. We do need to start the search for a new Restore location. We want to do that for another 6 months to 1 year's time. And we do need to host these black tie events. As I mentioned, it's very important that we showcase to the community how important these relationships are, and we really want to give the opportunity to give back. So not only will these be just a supper for somebody to come and just kind of get together, but we also want to have games and raffle items and a silent auction, things that you aren't doing right now, but that we have the opportunity to do in the future at these events. And what this is going to do is it's going to increase efficiency to foster a collective environment, which is what we want to do with families today. Now, how we're going to break this down is $150,000 is going to go into the operating budget to help build these homes. Kara will take you through that later. And the second part of this aspect is to just prospect new locations. Right now, we have a 1-year time before we are renewing our lease for the new year, and we'd really like to locate to a new location. Because right now you're a little bit crowded in your Restore location, and we think with all the donations that are coming in, why aren't we moving to a bigger facility to showcase all of these items? Our third phase of our implementation is building communities, because that's really why we're here today. We want to start an endowment fund to have security for the future, because right now it's only a 1-year time that Mr. Russo is offering this $1 million contract. So we need to have some future security. As well as we need to relocate Restore and build these houses. After all, that's why we're here today. We're here to build 24 houses in 2014 and help out these families. So we need to build those houses. And finally, we just need to foster an appreciation for the community, because giving back is really, really important. And that's why we're so passionate about this project, is because we just want to foster an appreciation for the community. In an area of 120,000 population, 24 houses is going to make a big difference for these people that don't even have running water or heat. And so how this is going to go is it's going to be a $300,000 deposit into the endowment fund, which we will leave at your discretion to use in the future. As well as we do want to relocate the restore location. And finally, as I mentioned, we do need to build these houses. So just an actionable timeline here. In the first couple months, we do need to renegotiate with Mr. Russo and the head office and the board of directors, just so that everything's on board to get this corporate sponsorship so that we can move forward in the first place. The second thing that we want to do is increase the operating budget so that we can build these houses, and then prospect new restore locations and host these black tie events to get the community involved. And the last thing that we want to do in 1 year's time is put some money into the endowment fund, build these houses, and relocate. And I believe that this is really going to take you into a great place in the future, because 24 houses in 2014, that is awesome. We are so excited that we have the opportunity to help you out with that. So we really think that doing this and going through with our recommendation is a great idea, and Kara's going to take you through further of the implementation for how we can make this work.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, so like we touched on, we're going to reallocate that $1 million budget over the next 5 years. So you're going to be able to add $150,000 to your current 2014 operating budget. Considering you usually operated on about $200,000, we think that building 24 homes will be very doable. I think Alex is really excited about it. You can probably actually get her out for some real sweat equity. And then overall, we're going to allocate $350,000 to purchase a new store for the restore location. You can do a little bit of renovations, and it's likely that you won't have to have any mortgage, or if you do, it will be very, very low, and you're not going to be having to make rent payments or have any misalignment in the future. The $300,000 can be for the endowment fund, and then you can allocate $50,000 for the next 4 years to really just keep you going and to add to that extra donations that you currently have. So what we think we're going to do here is really have a huge community impact. You're going to have an enhancing event that brings your community together. It brings together a thank you for the community, the people who are donating. It brings together volunteers and the corporate sponsors. You're going to be building more homes. That's a huge impact in itself. You're going to have a long-term effect that is going to allow you to make those benchmark goals and to say, yeah, we are going to build more homes every year, year after year. You're going to bring together corporations, community, and volunteers. Like I said, this just brings together a lot of different opportunities. Potentially some of these people who aren't doing so well with their homes are looking for different jobs. They're going to be meeting different people. This just brings together so many different people and gives so many exponential opportunities. And then adapting for maximum growth. We really see your organization as an organization that's able to adapt no matter what the market is. No matter if there's a financial crisis, or if there is a need for homes, or a need in your community. We see your organization as an organization that just really strives to help and really strives for everyone to have benefit. So a few risks in mitigation. If Russo does not want the sweat equity, if he doesn't want to add that in and really get his workers to be in on the volunteering, we believe that you should reject that offer and scale back production for 2014. However, considering that he wants to add this into his corporate social responsibility program that he currently offers, we think that this will be a great offer for him, and we don't see this as a very high risk. However, if head office does not approve Russo's deal, we believe that you can seek acceptable sponsorship opportunities, which you will have to outline with them. We also think that there can be more of a focus on fundraising. If the rent ends up being non-negotiable, if you're not able to leverage any of your connections, or you're not able to renegotiate the rent for a lower price, you can purchase a new location in 4 to 6 months when you have this extra $1 million. And if there's not enough homes to build 24, or not enough volunteers to build 24 homes, we think that you can expand beyond your city limits. We believe that you've already outlined this as an opportunity, and you can really reach beyond the city limits to the other external communities. We think that you can do this either way, but definitely reach out if you need to. So overall, we think that your organization is making an impact on the community, is making an impact in the families' lives who are currently in this vicious circle. They don't necessarily want to be there, but they need your help. And you're providing them the opportunity to not only put some sweat equity into their home, but give them something that's going to make a lasting impact on their lives and really just change it for the better. I'd like to thank you for hearing us today, and I'd now like to open the floor to questions.
All right, so that formally concludes the presentation part, so it'll be 5 minutes for the judges to ask questions.
In your matrix, you use a column for adaptability. Can you define that a little more? How did you
For
define
sure.
what wins?
For adaptability, what do we meant by that is being able to have like that safety net with that endowment fund, be able to shift our focus on revenue streams instead of from donations to have a little bit of safety net, as well as with the government grants, being that some of them are running out in 2015.
So you outlined 3 decision criteria, alignment with values, sustainability, adaptability. Are they all the same in terms of weight? Which one's the most important?
Just to go one further, I would say the most important would probably be the values. We want to make sure we're harboring the values and making sure we're continuing to compete with that overall challenge of poverty in Wellington.
And to follow up on that, the decision to accept the donation is the only one that's sort of negative with what you just outlined as the most important criteria. How does that work?
As Russo's current offer sits, it's $1 million his name on items. We have not currently gone to him and offered him the sweat equity, and we have not negotiated with head office. We think that you have the opportunity to do that and really show head office that this is an opportunity for Wellington to really prosper, to take this $1 million and not only put it back into the community, but to get more volunteers out and to really bring the community together in a greater way.
I'd hate to be Russo negotiating with you guys. Poor guy. So in that negotiation, you guys seem like you're counter-offering him that you do this, you want it one way, we want it one way, if you don't take our way, that's the end of that conversation. Do you feel that that's how that would go in reality?
We firmly believe in what we have to offer is a great offer. Of course, we think that because we're offering it. But he does have a corporate social responsibility department, and he's not going to give up everything all at once. He's going to give the minimum possible. Here's my money, and I don't want to have to do any work. But if we actually tell him why, and we get him to understand, why do you want to get involved with Habitat for Humanity? He'll start to understand, and he'll get his employees on board so that they will not only want to give their name to it, but they'll also want to volunteer because they do care.
Did you think at all about how the interest on the endowment fund would be used and realistically what that might generate?
We believe that the interest on the endowment fund can be put back into the revenues for the next 4 years and beyond. I would say it could generate something between, well, I guess it would depend on the riskiness asset of it, but I would say 10 to 15%, and you could look at putting more money into it at future dates, as well as going with a safer option.
Did you look at the option between investing versus endowment and what that looked like?
We believe that you will have both a balance of investment and endowment because you're going to be able to purchase a new resort location. You're currently renting on a lease term, so you're going to be able to invest your money in a location and then also have the endowment fund. We didn't look at necessarily investing the money instead of the endowment fund, but we think that right now you have a nice balance.
And we probably have time for one more question.